Kia ora koutou. Thank you for coming this morning and for carving out this time. It's always wonderful to connect and share. I'll open us with a karakia and then hand over to Graham. So he inoi tātou. Whakataka te hau ki te uru. Whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta. Kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi aki ana te atakura. Ti hei Māori ora. Kia ora koutou. Just a big warm welcome from us at Revive Our Golf for your energy and contribution and your time today. So I'll pass over to Graham, who will lead us through this session. Kia ora, Graham.
Thanks, Katina. Just bear with me as I struggle with the technologies as always. So welcome everybody to the next Hauraki Golf Exotic Caulerpa Community Information Forum. So just a reminder that we do record this and it will be shared tomorrow, hopefully. We'll send out the link. So if you're not comfortable being recorded, please step away now and watch the recording tomorrow. Let's just go through just the usual reminders about the protocol. If you could mute, and more importantly, remember to unmute if you do have the opportunity to speak. There will be a lot of us today, so use the chat if you've got any questions. And something that we often forget to do in this forum, because we've all worked so closely together the last four years or so, if you could just mention your name if you do speak and your affiliation, so that we can put a name to a face. And of course, I'm guilty of that. I'm going to step back and just remind people who I am. I'm Graham Allen. My role at the moment is Marine Pest Management Specialist. And we've also got Katina Economist, who's the Program Director at Revive Our Golf. So that's too. And between us, it's a bit of a double act because Katina jumps in when I forget to do something. So we'll be swapping in and out of this. So back to the protocols. The agenda for today, we're very lucky to have Patrick from the Cawthron Institute give a broader look at marine biosecurity to kind of put the context of what we're doing. We've been very focused on exotic Caulerpa, but there's a broader marine biosecurity context out there, and Patrick will speak to a big project that he's leading. And then we've got the usual updates, and I've grouped them into agency updates and at place updates. What you see in front of you on the screen at the moment is the ones that have confirmed. If anybody else does wish to speak, we're quite informal here and we'll take last minute presentations. So put it in the chat and Katina will keep an eye on there and we'll slot you in. And then there's some special mentions at the end. I've got two little piece of information to share, and Alistair from Hydro Synergy will just give you a quick update on some work from Hydro Synergy. And that tells me that we're all done on my part. I am now going to stop sharing and hand the floor over to Patrick, who I'm not going to introduce because I'm sure Patrick can do a much better job of introducing himself. So over to you, Patrick, and floor is yours. And time management, whatever it takes to inform us on what's going to be a very interesting talk. So over to you, Patrick.
Okay, sure. Can you just confirm that you could see my slide?
We can.
Yeah, very good. Okay, hello everyone. So my name's Patrick Carhill and I'm a biosecurity scientist and I lead the biosecurity group at Cawthron Institute. And just for anyone who's unfamiliar with Cawthron, we're an independent research institute in Nelson. So we're not a CRI and we're not, so we're entirely independent and administered by a charitable trust. And most of the things, somebody's saying the presentation is not visible.
I can see it. I can see it.
Okay.
Yeah, yep. we can see it.
Okay, all good. Yep. So yeah, most things we do at Cawthron are related to the water in some way, and marine and freshwater, and we have a specific capability in marine biosecurity. And this talk is going to give an overview of MBIE Endeavour funded project that we were lucky to receive last year. And it's a $10 million project that will run for 5 years. And the basic idea is to progress the science and practice of marine pest management in the sea, which, as you all know, is a challenging topic. So I'm really just going to run through what we're planning to do. We're only 7 months into the project, so a lot of this is future work. And then at the end, I'll highlight some areas where I think of particular relevance to Caulerpa. Yep, so it's probably no news to anyone here that marine pests are a big problem, and there's a big legacy of marine pest introductions in New Zealand and globally. And these are just sort of a few of the examples of pests, things including Sabella, Asian paddle crab, various sea squirts, and of course Caulerpa. And when these things come, they can have very significant negative effects on marine ecosystems and associated industries and values. And over the past, I'd say, 20 years, there's been a lot of progress made in the areas of pathway management, so preventing pests spreading and reaching countries, and then surveillance to detect them. And New Zealand has really been a world leader in this space. We have some of the best or the best marine pathway management and surveillance systems anywhere, and the various agencies and researchers that have helped build those should be commended for doing so. But the real big next challenge that we see for marine biosecurity is advancing our ability to manage marine pests when they do arrive, because it's inevitable that some pests will always arrive. We can reduce the risk of them coming, but if there's things like international shipping, there's always going to be a level of risk. So when we formed this program, we sort of saw the next big science challenge was to advance our ability to actively respond and eradicate or manage marine pests over the long term. So it's recognised that managing pests in the sea is a big challenge, but it's not an insurmountable challenge. And we took this analogy from what happens on land. So in terrestrial biosecurity, in places it's become almost commonplace to successfully eradicate or manage pests. So the green dots you can see here is the cumulative eradication successes on terrestrial islands over time, and it's kind of gone through this exponential growth curve where in the early 1900s there was very few successful examples, but now it's rapidly increasing. And the blue dots along the bottom are the very few successful marine pest eradication attempts that have happened globally. And you can see these values aren't zero, but they're just small numbers. But our idea is that with some ambitious and joined up science, that we could sort of trigger that same upward trend for marine pest science as well. So yeah, this is kind of whether or not everyone agrees with this or not is another question. But in the sea, often it's very difficult to act against marine pests. And we often lack the tools available to succeed. And often a pest is detected, we decide to act, and then a whole lot of barriers come up which make it very, very difficult to manage that pest. And this program is about trying to solve those barriers and have more tools available for people to use. It's crossing from things like strategy and tactics through to practical on-the-ground tools that people can use in water to reduce pest populations, and then testing those things ahead of time. And a key aspect of our project as well is this idea that it's not when a pest arrives and subsequently when it's managed, there's not a binary decision between doing nothing and total eradication. There's a whole spectrum of things in between that can also be selected as goals and deliver tangible benefits. So we could locally eliminate them. We could do this idea of functional eradication, which is reducing pest populations to levels below where they cause negative impacts, and then just long-term suppression. There's kind of a whole lot of cost-benefit decisions involved in these. So this is the broad structure of our program, and it's separated into these 3 key areas. So developing sort of strategy and tactics for marine pest management, developing a new suite of pest eradication technologies, and then operational validation and optimization of all of these components ahead of time so that they're ready to use when pests arrive. So I'm just going to run through each of these areas and talk to the kinds of work that we're going to be doing in each of these spaces. And yeah, also just to highlight that this is a large research team involved. It's not just Cawthron, so there's multiple universities involved. There's some overseas collaborators, including CSIRO, McGill University, and the Smithsonian Institute. And then we also have many partnered stakeholders who are really critical to making this tangible. So MPI, many of the regional councils, DOC, and then also the EPA. So just to run through the first aspect of the program, so strategy and tactics. So I talked about this idea of goal setting, and so we're kind of in the process of sort of deconstructing some prior marine pest incursions and responses, and using that to inform how sort of structured approach for goal setting. So defining early on what you want to achieve from a pest management campaign, and then subsequently throughout the strategies of how you go about doing that. And I think a lot of us in the project are ecologists, so strategies founded in ecology and biology of the pest. So how do you rationally act against a pest based on its ecology and biology to drive the outcome that you'd want, either eliminating it or reducing it. And then the tactics, so translating that kind of ecological theory into practical on the ground action. And the idea is that we will run through this, and we'll work with stakeholders, including sort of workshops and these kind of aspects. And the intended outcome is sort of a goal setting framework that can be generalizable for different pest groups, or tailored for specific pests. And then that would flow through to sort of strategic and tactical plans that can be applied. And sort of underpinning that more sort of higher level framework kind of aspect, we're also working to translate that into sort of this idea of an incursion simulator, which is kind of a computational approach to basically, could we simulate how a pest population will spread in different environments for a given pest, and then what happens if we apply different management interventions to it, with the idea that it could help direct the best use of available resources to drive that population down. And there's a whole lot of modelling involved, including things like hydrodynamics. So how does a pest propagule spread around by currents, through to population type modelling. So how does a pest population breed, etc., and then overlaying different management actions onto that. And the idea is that we would produce out of this something along the lines of an interactive web application that managers or people directing pest control efforts could use to inform their decisions and direct their efforts. And I'll try to play this video. Hopefully it works. So this is not our model, but this is a comparable model that's been built in Australia for managing disease outbreaks in agriculture, and it kind of shows broadly the kind of model we're aiming towards developing. So a model that shows spatially on a map different pest populations, how they will grow and spread through time, and how that will change if you apply different management actions over the top of it. So yeah, the intent is that we would produce the marine type version of this. So I'll just pause that. Ooh. And the next component of the program is eradication technology. So this is the more practical in the water aspect of the program. So there's many, or there are available pest control tools for use in the sea, which everyone here will know, including the ones that are being used for Caulerpa. To date, marine pest management has arguably defaulted to hand removal of the pests, which is has value, obviously, but it's obviously a simple tool, it's quite labour intensive, and it has some limitations on it. And the other tools that are generally available for use ahead of time are also quite simple things like treatment with broad spectrum toxins like chlorine, or dredging, or these kind of things. So we see undoubtable value in these tools, and we will be incorporating them into our broader structures as well. But we see that there's an opportunity to develop sort of higher tech type tools that could sort of change the playing field in terms of how effective we can be in the sea in terms of unit effort versus unit pest removal. And there's a whole world of these kind of tools in terrestrial space that we're using as inspiration, and taking some of the latest sort of technical advances from terrestrial pest control and trying to apply them to marine pests. So I'll quickly run through each of the 5 tools that we're working to develop. So the first one, we have this kind of catchy name of aqua chemicals. So it's sort of a play on the word of agrochemicals. So in terrestrial systems, you can obviously go down, even as a member of the public, you can go down to Bunnings and buy a whole lot of chemicals that will specifically control pests or pest plants or pest insects that you have. And these chemicals have been designed through like modern chemistry to be highly selective against that pest and have relatively minimal side effects. And this can also be done for marine pests as well. So our approach is using modern medicinal chemistry to develop highly selective pest control chemicals. And yeah, this has not been done in the sea previously. So within the project, our intent is to prove it against one marine pest, and that could subsequently be applied to other marine pests. And the pest that we're focusing on for various reasons is the shipworm. So this worm that burrows into wooden structures in the sea and causes those wooden structures to fall apart. And we're taking this class of compounds called ivermectins, which people may be familiar with as cattle drenchers, and changing the chemistry in specific ways to make it specific towards this pest only, have minimal off-target effects in the environment, and also be suitable for application in water. Yeah, so this is detailed chemistry, which is probably not relevant. So the next tool we're developing is we're calling biogenic control. So this is arguably an aspect of biological control. So traditional biological control is taking something like a predator or a parasite or a disease of a pest that's highly specific to that pest, and introducing it into the environment where it reduces the fitness of the pest and drives the population down. That approach relies on really strong ecological link between a pest and the biological control agent to minimize off-target effects, and it can go terribly wrong if you don't have that ecological link. We can think of things like stoats being introduced to control rabbits, etc. So those kind of very strong ecological links are not particularly common in the sea, or at least they're not well studied and known. So this approach is taking native space competitors, so things that basically just they grow and outcompete for space with a pest, and trying to boost their population so that they drive down the population of the pest. And potentially relevant to Caulerpa, the seaweeds are an obvious candidate for this approach. And the specific project we'll be doing to prove this approach is with the introduced kelp Undaria, which has been in New Zealand for quite a long time, but it's a good model species because there's a lot of information known about the space competition between Undaria and certain native kelp species. So we'll be doing experiments to understand what happens if we boost the native kelp populations to drive down the Undaria populations. And there's a really nice linkage between pest management and restoration here. So this is maybe the stretchiest of the tools we're developing. So this is the idea of gene drives. So this is involves an aspect of genetic engineering, which is something that needs to be done very, very carefully and in a highly controlled environment. So there's this technology that has been developed in terrestrial systems for example, for things like mosquitoes, where you can use gene editing to bias the heritability of a certain gene, and it's using CRISPR-Cas gene editing, and it means that that gene that you're editing becomes 100% heritable. So every offspring will receive it. And if you were to link that gene to something that's harmful to the fitness of the organism, it will make the population less able to survive and thrive. And in theory, some of these gene drives could make a population of pests become extinct. It has some inherent advantages in that if it works, it's very low input. You could release or a small number of these animals into the environment, and they would go about their business, and the population would decline with no other intervention. But this is obviously emerging technology. It requires very, very careful consideration before anything like that were to be done. And we recognise that risk. And so the work we will be doing here is really to understand what are those risks in a highly contained environment. So we have a physical containment laboratory where we'll be working on the C-squirt Siona, understanding can we generate a gene drive using something that's non-deleterious, and then what happens, and then providing that information so that people can make decisions about should this be done or not. So yeah, this is some of the detailed molecular work involved. So another one borrowing from sort of modern technology is this idea of AI-powered trapping. So for mobile pests, so for things like crabs, trapping is a relevant way to remove pests. Current trapping approaches are quite labour intensive, and you have to put a trap, you have to go and clear that trap and rebait it repeatedly. The idea is here that we could use AI and engineering to make a trap that could be deployed and sit there passively on the seafloor. And if a pest crab comes into it, it could be detected via AI and it could be destroyed, which is by crush basically, or similar mechanisms. And then ideas that those crushed crabs could become bait for the next crabs to come into the trap. So yeah, we're working with machine learning people to develop the algorithms to detect the Asian paddle crab, and then develop hardware that we could put that into, deploy onto the seafloor to make this passive trap that could produce pest populations. So yeah, some very early prototypes of the trap that we're developing. And this could subsequently go into other things such as ROVs that automatically detect pests and destroy them, other things like this. And then this one is recognising the unique value that Māori communities bring to pest control. So we have this resource within the platform to support a Māori scholar to develop a pest control tool based on their own mātauranga. So the idea is that we hope if we can find the right person to support a postdoctoral researcher who brings a Te Ao Māori view, and ideally has also got an ecological or similar background, and would support them for several years to develop a pest tool. We're going to be putting out an advert, I think, within the next couple of weeks to look for someone suitable for that. So if anybody knows of anyone, please let us know. So the final component is the operational validation and optimization. So it's really taking all of these above components and putting them into practice in the field to see how they work in practice and join them up together. And obviously some of the technologies that I just talked about would not be put into the field during a program like this, but the technologies that are suitable to be put in the field, we would be aiming to trial them. So we hope to do we will do operational trials, and we aim to link up with folks that are doing active pest control. We have a really good relationship with Patu Harakiki in the Whangarei area, and they have an ongoing Sabella management effort, which they're going to extend or as part of this program using support from the program. And the panel on the right just highlighting that we've been working on this MPI funded project around using chlorine to treat large volumes of seawater in marina type structures, which we can also extend here in a way. So we've done this trial in Opua Marina where we've been able to use large sediment curtains to surround areas of marine structure right down to the seafloor and kill a wide range of pests. And we also sort of just more generally throughout the program, given it's a 5-year program, we'll be looking for opportunities to align with ongoing pest control initiatives where we can, the advances that we're developing as we develop them, make them available to people and work alongside them so that they can be used and put into practice. So in the first picture is of Caulerpa, so we're obviously keen and able to help with Caulerpa where it makes sense, and there's other pest eradication efforts ongoing that we're also happy to help with where we can. And then, yeah, just this is very small and hard to read, but I find an additional aspect of the validation and optimization of what we're doing is sort of tool delivery. So some of these higher tech tools that we're developing almost need to become products if they're to become available in the market. So there's kind of this commercialization type stream within the program where things like aqua chemicals or AI powered traps where if and when they work, we'd be looking to commercialize them so that they could be available at scale for people to use. And then, yeah, just to finish, I'm sort of mindful that this is a broad program aiming to advance pest control science in general, but I know everyone here has a very tangible, urgent problem today, being Caulerpa. And just to highlight where we think we can help, I guess directly and near term, I guess just to highlight that where Cawthron is already helping with 2 of the 3 control tools that are being developed for Caulerpa. So we're helping with the dredging effort and the chlorine effort in Northland. We think the computational modelling that I showed early on is something that we could help with quite in a reasonable time frame for Caulerpa. Our current default plan is that that model that I showed the video example of, our default plan is that we would develop that for Caulerpa in the first instance, and it could be help direct efforts relatively quickly. So longer term, some of these technologies that I've mentioned, none of them are being actively developed for Caulerpa, just for various reasons, but they're platform technologies, and the idea that they could subsequently be applied to any or various marine pests. So they could be applied to Caulerpa in the future to help better management long term, and just more broadly the advances of the program around operational strategy and tactics. We think these learnings will flow through to the management of Caulerpa. And then other possibilities, just highlighting that at Cawthron we have these facilities where we can work on marine pests that require good containment. So yeah, any work around understanding Caulerpa ecology and biology to help direct efforts is something we're really well placed to help with. Yeah, and this is the facility I'm mentioning. We have this PC2 aquatic biocontainment facility where we can hold and grow marine pests in containment and work on them safely. So that's all I had. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer them if there's time.
Thank you, Patrick. Whistle stop tour, 25 minutes,
Yes.
a massive project. So thank you. Great slides. If anybody's got any questions, you pop them in the chat or raise your hand if you want to verbally ask the question. While we're waiting, I suppose selfishly, the advert for the postdoc, can you send that through when it's available, and I'll share it within the exotic Caulerpa community?
Yes,
Because
totally.
I think that's a great opportunity for exotic Caulerpa there. That would be really good. And I'm sure there's a lot of people interested in that. Yeah, that's great.
Totally.
And the slides, you can send me through the slides, and I can make those available afterwards.
Yep, should be no problem with that. Yep.
The use of the word functional eradication.
Yes.
I'm quite a pedant when it comes to the word eradication. I'm indoctrinated by several colleagues at DOC, where eradication is quite a binary for all individuals from a species. Using functional eradication is blurring that use of the word eradication, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you see any danger there?
I guess it's a political question maybe, but there's some good papers recently that have come out and with this concept of functional eradication, and it's really eradicating the unwanted effect of the pest rather than eradicating the pest. So I think it's probably a blurry line between eradication and suppression, but I guess it's recognizing that you don't necessarily need to remove every single individual to get the outcome that you want in every situation. I think this broader range of goals in our mind, sort of provides a broader range of success options rather than you're either fully eradicated or you don't.
No, I'd agree with that. Moving away from the binary, there's only one response, that's to eradicate, to a suite of possible outcomes and choosing whichever's best for that particular pest and situation, I think is good. Okay. Have we got no questions? I think you've
nothing coming through on the chat.
No.
Graham and Patrick. So
okay. Well, thank you, Patrick. I don't know whether you want to stay around or you have to rush off, but thank you very much. Yeah, thanks, Patrick. So if we do get any more questions, we'll take them through to you.
Very good.
We'll move along in the agenda now to the agency updates, and we'll start with Sophia White, Programme Manager of Exotic Caulerpa. Sophia, are you going to drive your slides? Would you want me to do the driving?
I can do. What's easiest for you, Graham? Do you want me to do
Whatever. Well, it's not about me, it's about you, Sophia. So.
Always about me, eh? Okay, hold on, give me a second. I'll just get my screens in order.
I wouldn't trust my driving anyway.
It's all good. All right, so I will just bring this up, and always a bit of a trick to get the right screen showing and then still be able to see you guys. So is it coming through to you now? Can you see that?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, so following your rules, Graham, I am the program manager for Exotic Caulerpa with NPI, Biosecurity New Zealand. So I have a very small team, and some of them are here today on the call. And then we have a lot of wider partners working in this space. So just want to acknowledge I'll be talking about other people's work today, and some of these people on this call. So hopefully I don't get anything wrong, and I might leave some space for other people to talk about their own work, because I see that's in the agenda today. So that's quite a cool picture there of our chlorine chamber drone shot from above of that working, and I'll talk about that in my presentation today. I'm also going to talk about new detection, the treatment trials research, some of the work ongoing at Aotea, our national advisory group who have been developing our strategy for Exotic Caulerpa, some comms and engagement work, and our calls to action, which is one and the same there. Right. So new detection. So since we had our last update, which was March, we've recently had a new detection at Little Barrier, or Hoturu, and that has been swiftly being attended to by our new detection team, which includes Ngāti Marihiri, and hopefully many of you have seen the press release by Ngāti Marihiri on this particular issue. Revive Our Gulf, so thank you to Graham for your work that you do within the Gulf on these new detections, Auckland Council, Biosecurity New Zealand DOC, and University of Auckland. So we've moved quite quickly on this detection to go and survey and treat some small patches using benthic mats. and there's more work to be done on that particular location there too. So that's just an update of where it is. We've included that overlay there of the high protection areas as well, which should be coming into effect fairly soon, I believe. I don't know if anybody on the call from DOC maybe want to put in the chat. I'm not sure what the expected date is for those high protection areas to come into play. But yes, obviously it's a hugely significant location, Little Barrier. And that's been detected there. It wasn't detected there last year, so that growth has happened within the last year. And we've got a number of drop cam images being evaluated, I think, at the moment by University of Auckland. So some existing data sets there that we can also trawl through. So a really good combined effort from a number of people to figure out what's happening there, how long has it been there, what does it look like, and what can we do. So that's the update for Hoturu, and probably more to come on that as well. So treatment tools, I'll quickly touch on a bit of an update from our last hui and just talk about those 3 tools. So the chlorine enclosure has been renamed the Rehabitat chlorine enclosure. And there's been really great progress on that. So Brooke and the team have been working to develop a number of new chambers in different sizes. The picture there you can see is 2 chambers being linked together using an inflatable sort of structure. So the chambers can be rolled up to be transported in a more agile fashion and then put out to the areas that they need to be used in. They've been fine-tuning the concentration of chlorine to be used and the exposure time and getting really good results on that, and looking to mobilize in a few more locations and get things just fine-tuned on that, and we should be expecting that final report. Might be pushed out to July. Obviously, weather has impacted on all of our work across the board. Everybody has been impacted by bad weather, so we just have to account for that in a number of our projects. So that is that one, which is very exciting. And that's that picture there again. As you can see, the chlorine's housed here on this particular vessel. That's the main vessel. And then we've got the work occurring there, which is fantastic to see. It's pretty awesome. So the next treatment tool is our UVC light. So this is Craig and his team have been working on this. And I think I said to you last time, the next step was to be getting the ROV or the robotics working, so we didn't have to use divers to deploy the tool. So trying to get smarter in the way that we work, more efficient, using an ROV to actually put this into place. So they've been doing some testing in Kaua and Waiheke, and they'll be moving back to Omakiwi, just trying to get good range of treatment sites to get really good results. And I do have some interesting slides later on biomass reduction, which we have been seeing. I think that's coming up. The submersible dredge planer, we at the moment are just looking at developing a slightly revised timeline. The construction of the submersible dredge is going to be occurring very shortly. The aileron, which is the big piece, the big smart ROV, huge one, is currently being obtained at the moment. And we just need to work through the timeline of that. So I haven't got an updated one for you there, but the work on that is still ongoing. Obviously a really difficult piece of kit and quite different from version 1 or version 2, where we're trying to clip together a few different pieces of technology. So same with the UVC light, with trying to include the robotics. With this, we're including the ROV as well, and quite a different model there. Where you see at the front, you can see the cutter to cut the Caulerpa and then pull it up into the dredge and then offload it. So those are those 3 tools in the update from last time. On the research side of things, so interesting point that I want you to take away from today is that we have been seeing reduction in places. So again, we had University of Auckland going out to the Mokahinas to do their work there, where they were expecting to find Caulerpa. They've seen it receding. And I said to you last time we were waiting on a report from NIWA on that biomass reduction and why that might be occurring. So that's still, we're still expecting that. What are we, end of May now? So that should be coming through shortly, which I hope will give us a bit more light into why we are seeing Caulerpa recede in some places and pop up in others, and then stay fairly consistent in some places. So there's a lot of unknowns here with Caulerpa that I think we need to be really conscious of. The report on artificial intelligence that Niwa was doing, so that's Lee Tate. We do have their report, and Graham's already gone ahead and scheduled a tech talk, so I won't talk about that because you'll hear all about it, which is great. Thank you, Graham. We've also included some additional work that we want to do looking at observations post-Cyclone Tam. So you would have known there was a massive amount of beach casts that happened at Omakiwi following Cyclone Tam, and a huge amount of community effort that went into removing that above the high tide mark. We had some interesting pictures, which I think is the next slide, which I want to show you. But before I move on, also the Whariki trials, I think there was no further update from that from last time. So again, mixed results of using those mats, which are the woolen mats, which saw the Caulerpa shirts still growing on top, and underneath the treatment wasn't as effective as expected. That's a tongue twister for you. Right, so this is interesting. So this is the treatment control sites for the UVC light tool in Omakiwi. So these are the spots that we weren't going to be doing anything to. And interestingly, we did some observations after the storm. So you can see here, 22nd of April, 5 days after the peak storm, some reduction was occurring. And then 26 days after the storm, these sites had practically disappeared. So this is really interesting to see that while that cyclone caused a huge amount of biomass to be thrown up onto our beaches, it also had an impact under the sea. So we need to go in and do a bit more work here to figure out what was the cause of that. Was it a reduction in light? Was it just that the fragmentations caused the fragility in the plants? Not too sure. So there's a bit of work there, and more question marks being thrown up. So I found that very interesting. Hopefully you do too. RT action, I'm not going to talk too much about this because I think Hannah might be speaking to this later in the agenda. So this is just an update from last time that we had funded a significant amount of work out there looking at surveillance of the East Coast. There's some surveillance on the West Coast now too. Looking at doing some diver training, so building capability for Aotea to undertake work in the Caulerpa space themselves. And again, we've seen biomass reduction in Kaiarara Bay, which is a spot that popped up before Christmas. So the divers went back in to check that. That's receded in that space there too. So interesting stuff. And just putting that point up there of having an agile approach to account for weather. Again, delays have meant that when we wanted to have things completed by a certain date, we just haven't been able to. So I'll leave that one there because I know it's going to be spoken about. And sorry if I'm racing through this quickly, but I just tend to do that. So apologies if this is very, very quick. Exotic Caulerpa National Advisory Group. So you'll know that we have a national advisory group that have been working on developing a strategy. This is in its final stages, which is fantastic. We expect to present this to the minister. We had a plan of June, but he's on leave, so we've got to wait for July. So our next step is to take that to the minister for endorsement. So it's a bit later than we wanted it to have, but I guess everybody does deserve to have a break. So yes, I hope after July we'll be able to come back to you and present a strategy that's been endorsed, and that's looking really great. Yeah, really fantastic. Comms and engagement. So we do a ton of work in this space to get the message out there about Caulerpa, its impacts, what people need to know. We had a really successful shared stall at the Hutchwilco Boat Show in May, and really good conversations. And it's always goes so far when you can just have a one-to-one with somebody about what they see as, Caulerpa being an issue or a non-issue to them, and some of the sort of rumours that they might believe. And you just always get through on a one-to-one basis with people about why is this an issue, why should they care, what can they do. So really fantastic feedback from that boat show, and a nice picture there of Jackie doing lots of work there. And that brings me on to our key messages, our calls to action. So again, we're always pushing our calls to action. If you see weed, bag it, bin it. There's a picture there that you can see how dense Caulerpa is. People really resonate with actually seeing, okay, it's got those oar-shaped ends. It can be really dense. This is why it's a problem. So really trying to hone that message home that everybody has an opportunity to be a part of preventing its spread. So cleaning their gear. Making sure they're not part of spreading it around to a new location. That was a really good thing that Caden presented from NRC at the Conquer Caulerpa Trust Hui on Tuesday night, that it has limitations naturally of where it can spread to, but it can jump from harbour to harbour through people. So again, making that onus on people's own actions that they can take. And then making sure people know our CAN rules and where they are, because they do differ in each location. So making sure people have access to these documents and have read them if they are boating and going out around. Like we're in winter, so hopefully not too many boats out there spreading things about. But again, making sure people are aware of those rules. And then the second call to action is if you think you have seen Caulerpa, especially in a location where it's not known to be, take that picture. Pictures are so valuable for us in that in identification. Means we can have a really, we can give a response really rapidly. We do still have a number of reports that come in saying, hey, I think I saw it, but I didn't have my phone. And I think it was about here. Which is obviously difficult to follow up on. So if people are out there and can take pictures, that just makes our job so much easier to figure out what we're actually dealing with, especially for remote locations. People saying, oh, I think I saw it out at the Poor Knights. It's like, well, okay, we have to mobilise to the Poor Knights to see what are we looking at. Luckily, we're still having a lot of people who are reporting in native Caulerpa, which is good, they're halfway there. So, and that's also nice for us. We can go, okay, phew, that was native Caulerpa, we're okay there. So that is just about me. And that's our last slide there. So very quick run through, but hopefully that was okay to follow for you all. Thanks for your time, and a big thank you to everybody who does work in this program. It is massive. It's a huge amount of work and effort, and it really goes to show that there are so many people pitching in. So I really appreciate it. Awesome. I'll stop sharing. Any questions?
Before we go on to questions, if that's all right, I'll interject as the facilitator. I've in the chat asked Craig if he wishes to give a bit more update on the UVC, given that you mentioned it and Craig's here. So ambush Craig, and he's given me the thumbs up. So I'll just pass to Craig if you want to give a ad hoc update, Craig, on your work.
Yep, kia ora. Thanks very much for that opportunity. Yeah, look, we've been working pretty hard on developing the UVC delivery. So I guess what we've seen in the lab and in the field is that the wavelengths are really good wavelengths for for treating Caulerpa. But the trick is in the delivery. And there's lots of learnings. So we're learning around what drives our parameters and our metrics, and and the units of measure that we use, and everything for us comes down to watts of UVC per square meter of Caulerpa that we're treating. And as we've sort of noted, that we've been working pretty hard around designing out divers. So I haven't got a whole lot of stuff prepared or anything, but we've got good sort of record and imagery of what we've been doing. And when we working up at Omakiwi, which has been fantastic to be able to have that opportunity to work up there, one of the things that we've looked at is this whole transition from multiple vessels and large teams down to smaller goals. So we've had a mission to design down to a 4-person team. So in our heads, we're thinking, what does the delivery of this look like, and how is it cost effective? And so we're on a journey to reduce our team size and our resource size, and the robotics is a really big part of that. And the testing we've done at Waiheke, which was really good fun, and we're lucky that Anne from MPI came out, and she was on the vessel with us at Waiheke and got to see us drive the unit around on the sea floor, and then luckily she left before we crashed it. So that happens too, you crash these things. So what I have got really quickly, and am I able to share screen for a sec, Graham?
I'll enable that now for you, Craig. Yep, one moment. You should be able to do so now.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So I'll just quickly chat through a couple of the images. So the images that Sophia just shared before were from our treatment site. So when we went up to Omakiwi, we selected 3 treatment areas rather ambitiously, I guess, given we hadn't had the machine in the ocean before. And we chose an area of regrowth, an area which we called treatment area 1, an area treatment area 2, which was slightly deeper, and from us it represented a transect that had variable growth. What was amazing at Omakiwi was, I guess, the learning for us. We thought we would build a machine that could drive along the seafloor, so the lights are quite close to the plant. You can move at about 30 centimeters a minute. But what we found really quickly was that the Caulerpa is so variable in its density, or it's at the height of the growth, that you quickly become a bulldozer if you try to do that. So we moved to a concept where we add dynamic ballast to the unit, and we lift it up, we raise it using compressed air and cameras to see what we're doing, and then we drive it forward, and then we come down and land on the Caulerpa again. And that's because we can be in a field, I guess, of Caulerpa that might be 50 or 100 mil thick, and then you can come across 1/2 meter thick clumps, and you just don't want to push them over. You've got to come up and land down upon them. So we found, changes to our methodologies were daily. I like to say that every day feels like your first day at work when you're working in the space, because you're presented constantly with different things. So one of the things that we looked at with Brett from MEFS and Auckland Uni, you can see here on my screen here, you've got T1, these quadrats, T1, which is just a test plot, 1, T2, T3, T4. So that goes along. We took 10 random quadrats in that first treatment area. So there's 10 of them there. And I won't kind of race through all of them, but when you scroll down the page, we then sort of move into just these snapshots of treatment 1 with UV, treatment 2 with UV, and then post treatment 3 with UV. So, and then there's our control. So that's basically the control over the same period of time. So when we had that biomass reduction, it was really specific to different areas. Like in our, what we call the regrowth area, we didn't get any biomass reduction post that cyclone. In fact, that's the control. We've got those controls in T2, which Sophia showed before, which show bare sand. But in this area, the control, like here's our control photos. So you can see controls over time. Actually, the controls are growing flat out. So, as much as we're reducing Caulerpa in that treatment area, outside, it's growing fast. So, we had 80% coverage at the beginning of the program in the control. But by the end of the program, in fact, Brett lost some of the markers because that overgrew. We couldn't find the marker tags. So the Caulerpa is continuing to grow quite quickly. So that's what's happening in the controls in that regrowth area. And then in terms of our treatment, I mean, that's what we're getting at the end of our treatments is that kind of terrain. And arguably we're not even very good at it. We're learning around how to position the lights and drive them and stay on track and make sure you treat the same thing twice. All those issues around underwater navigation. So you can see here on this quadrat 10, it actually sat outside our treatment. So there's the treatment string line running down on the left-hand side of that image, and you kind of see where the lights have essentially burnt through. We didn't cover that quadrat with the light array. So that's kind of what we know we can do if you get good at it. And I guess that's our focus at the moment, and hence that's why we came back down to Waiheke to start working with the robotics and actually just practice. It's a lot of this is around practice and developing systems. So we see the process of lots of these tools is you break those tools into equipment. So you need good equipment, durable equipment that is not a barrier to mobilization and delivery. The next thing you do is your staff, your team, it literally is the first day at work every day. And so we need time to get our people and ourselves, get our systems operational so you're well practiced at the delivery. And then clearly what happens once you have equipment that starts being quite durable and reliable, and then staff and people and team members who are getting quite good at it, you actually start getting innovation upon innovation. So, and these things take time. Like, we got on the water in March, and now we're at the end of May. And, it's pretty cool seeing, Brooke working up there in Omakiwi while we were there, and just, I guess, how fast innovation starts happening once you're in the process of doing. and lots of words around learning by doing, and honestly, they really are true, and for us, that's been extremely valuable to have that experience, to get in the water with our teams, get back to workshops, change, innovate, and just keep moving at pace. And so, yeah, that's our ad hoc update, Graham, is that, you know, we're pretty comfy that the wavelengths are a really good wavelength of light. And a lot of the learnings are in the system of application, and clearly follow up too. So, you know, these photos here are plus 50 days following first treatment. So that row of photos is all plus 50 days. And you know, Brett's going to head back there and check them again. And we know from the work at Rakino, once you turn dense Caulerpa to sparse Caulerpa, you know, your efficiency improves as well. So what we see potentially is, you know, treatment on day one is much, much slower than treatment by the time you're on treatment 3. You can actually go much faster because there's essentially less biomass and less surface area to treat with UVC light. So these are all learnings. So we see, you know, progressive efficiencies over time improving. But that's a nutshell summary.
What a great ad hoc overview. But that, unfortunately, Craig, and I am mindful that we've displaced Sophia, but I'm coming back to Sophia because I've got a particular nag. So if you could just hold on. That has raised a couple of ad hoc questions. If everybody's going to, what's the word, allow me to carry on. Post-treatment monitoring. I'm a great fan of post-treatment monitoring, and given that this funding is project-based, how long will the post-treatment monitoring go on for?
So, sorry, Graham, I know from our perspective, we've budgeted for some follow-up with MEFS and Auckland Uni. So we'll be essentially diving for as long as we can to monitor these programs. But you do run out of time for sure. And then, I mean, the other thing that's really interesting with post-monitoring, in fact, this whole story of Caulerpa, one of the elements that should be addressed, and I know is being addressed as much as practical, so there's no sort of argument about it, but it's clearly resource driven, is that there's another story which really is there will be undoubtedly optimized times of year to treat particular areas, right? So what we're seeing is that there's probably no one rule, you know, like what's building in our minds is you're going to have to treat what you see in front of you, and that will look different depending on time of year, age of the growth that's in front of you, depth of water, you know, available light. All these things play into a really variable presentation of Caulerpa. So Caulerpa presents itself, from our experience, it presents itself really differently depending on location, time of year. There's a whole range of parameters that we're learning, and so here's you know, we've been doing some stuff in the intertidal areas at Omakiwi as well. And then we've sampled Caulerpa from, say, 17, 18 meters at Aotea. So rules of thumb seem to be the plant is increasingly vulnerable based on its natural exposure to light. So the less light it's naturally exposed to, the more vulnerable it becomes to some of these treatments. And therefore, you know, shallow water in the summer, there's a high ambient light level. It makes lots of treatments challenging. You know, wintertime, short days, low sun angle works in your favor. Low temperatures, all those things seem to work in your favor. So I think there's these pictures that are emerging that there will be optimized times of year to treat. Places like Omakiwi in the Bay of Islands treat every day because it's just there. There's just so much. But, you know, there could be, you know, other areas where it's more search and destroy. You know, potentially there's optimum times of year to do that.
Thanks, Craig. Anybody else got any other questions? Or just to warn people, I'm going to put my nagging hat on and segue back to Sophia. If there's, okay, I'm going to segue back to Sophia. My nagging hat is, it's kind of a point that Craig picked up on, that one of the issues we've got with these projects, we built up momentum and the funding is quite episodic. And so what worries me is we've got all this great innovation going on. At some point, the project ends, the funding ends, we demobilize, and then there's a hiatus until the next tranche of projects. And it seems to be, we lose momentum. So I guess my nagging request to Sophia, picking back up, Sophia, you mentioned a number of reports that we're also working through. Just a request that we have visibility of those reports as quickly as possible to keep the momentum and keep that kind of flow going, which that's kind of my nag. But my question is, what's the funding outlook like? And I know it's a difficult question, but we've got 3 really great research projects and a portfolio of work which you've talked about. But my understanding is that financial commitment ends at the end of this financial year. What does the 1st of July look like for the Exotic Caulerpa endeavour?
Yeah. So it's no different to previous years where we've gone into a bit of an unknown. In previous years, as it's been a response, the funding has been allocated and it has ended, and there's been a gap between the financial years before there's been more funding confirmed. I don't think we're going to be in a different. We're still in that same situation where I'm not sure what the funding outlook looks like post July. Okay. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and as Craig mentioned, we've got some things that are going past June that will carry on. The submersible dredge will carry on past June as well. There's a whole lot of work that's not necessarily operationally funded that will continue too. But the big thing that we need to do from the treatment tools is take those reports and what we've found and put that into our advice to the Minister for the next steps, which will be very helpful in his cabinet feedback report as well. So there's a lot of advice we need to give on what we found from these treatment tools and what we think needs to happen next to go forward. So an unknown place, but lots of work still to be done to keep that momentum.
And that advice to the Minister, will that include a position on the Better Business case? Because we haven't heard progress on that for some time.
Yeah, so it's all tied up with that and with the strategy as well. So presenting that to the Minister too.
Right. Okay. And I noticed there is a question from Tiffany. I don't know, Sophie, whether you can see the chat, or do you want me to read that out? It's around cans.
Yeah, I can see that. So thinking about cans in the future for areas where spread is increasing fast, like Te Rāwhiti and Aotea, where cans have been in place for years. So all of our controlled notices are coming up for review in September. So we need to start that thinking in the work for what we do with those controlled area notices prior to that. So I expect that in the coming months, we will be looking to develop up what the options are for those cans and to be talking to people about those cans as has happened in previous years. So we'll go through that same process. And a lot of that will be talking to communities on, are those rules fit for purpose? I'm really keen to obviously get up-to-date information on what the biomass looks like in those places. And interesting point made earlier about Waiheke, we saw that biomass reduction and then returned back to similar levels that were seen prior to that biomass reduction. So we're dealing with a dynamic situation, and those one consideration of those cans is obviously density of the Caulerpa at place. So there's a lot to consider there, and making sure we're getting up-to-date information, feedback from our communities, and determining what controlled area notices are appropriate for which place. I guess the bigger picture there is that we need to be moving towards pathway management. So all vessels at all times are taking the right action. So the same messaging that we're putting out there with the sort of voluntary campaigns of, if you see something, make sure you bag it, bin it. But that really needs to become a legislative responsibility for vessel owners, and it's something that's been spoken about for more than a decade with people. And that's that clean hull plan, clean vessel plan that's being progressed in the background. So really hoping that will come into place, and that will give good rules for people to take responsibility at all times when moving their vessels.
Wow, you skillfully answered the question I was about to ask around the clean hull plan. So that still is on the table.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, right. Okay, thank you, Sophia. And thanks for the presentation, the program update. Mindful that you do need to scoot away. So
Right.
if anybody
Graham, just to interrupt, sorry, we've got Barry. Barry Scott's had his hand up for a little while. Can we throw to
Really?
Barry for
Sorry.
a question? Yes,
Sorry.
that's okay.
Sorry, Barry, I didn't see that.
It's all right, Graham. I was going to speak up. Sophia, I think everyone would agree this biomass reduction is very, very interesting. And I think we all would like to know more about what's actually going on. But it seems to me to really understand this, we need some longitudinal studies. We need to have some monitors around light, temperature, clarity of the water, depth. I just feel at present it's all a little bit ad hoc, in that, for example, University of Auckland divers were out at the Mokihinau's last year, and then they're out again now, and these observations are made, but there's no real formal longitudinal study in place. And I guess it links with Graham's comments about funding and the short-term nature of them. And of course, research doesn't lend itself particularly well to short-term studies. So I just wonder if you're going to could comment on that, and whether some of this might be captured in the strategic plan by the National Advisory Group. I would hope so. I'll be disappointed if it's missing.
Yeah, thanks, Barry. I guess, while our cycles might not allow for longitudinal studies, researchers do by nature. So I would say some of the work that NIWA have been doing, they've kept core samples from a long period. They have sites that they'd already marked out to go back to, time and time again. So I think having that study back from NIWA will answer some of those questions that you have. I can't answer them at the moment, but once we do have that report back from NIWA, it'd be worth probably having some time for NIWA to present that at a hui like this, so they can talk to their work there. I hope that answers that for you, Barry.
As I understand, their studies are they at multiple sites, though, not just Aotea?
Yep, multiple sites.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there's no more questions, thanks, Sophia, again, and bid a farewell.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Sophia. And I'll make those slides available after the meeting with the recording, if anybody wants to peruse them at their leisure. So thank you, Sophia, and we'll move along now to Auckland Council. I believe Dimitri's on the call, and will be there, and you'll drive your slides.
I am here. I do have a quick slide to show and run through some points of what we've been up to. Is it all right to share?
Yep.
Yes, you should be right to share, Dimitri. Kia ora.
Okay, let me. Right, so I do see some of my other team are on the call as well. So if I miss anything, please call in. So kia ora koutou. My name's Dimitri. I'm a senior marine biosecurity advisor at Auckland Council, for those that don't know me. This is just a brief overview of some of the things we've been working on since the last update. First off the ranks is, we're deeply involved in the Hauturu detection response. So that's been, I'll just continue on from what Sophia's been talking about. So it's been led by or coordinated by Ngāti Marihiri, and been working with AC, DOC and Revive Our Gulf. We've been doing a lot of surveillance work out there to find the true extent of the incursion. We've been doing towed video, ROV, and snorkel at this stage. So we've done quite a bit there, and the next step is to collate all the information to date and run it past the new detection team, and that'll help inform our next steps going forward there. It kind of trumped our Southern Kawa new detection response. So we've done a couple of days there too, both with Ngāti Marihiri, Revive Our Gulf, and ourselves. Sorry, I forgot to say that DOC has also been very proactive at the Hauturu response. They've been providing boats in kind and some snorkelers. And Ngāti Marihiri have been supplying boats, which has been really great. And things have been moving quite quickly there. So yeah, just continuing on to Southern Kawo. We've got about 3 days or 4 days of detection response there, doing ROV and towed video. So when we've got time, we'll continue with that as well. Comms and advertising campaigns, so that's a MPI funded thing to Auckland Council. So our comms team have been really active in getting advertising through digital media campaigns and advertising. We've also been producing some mini docuseries video productions. So the first one's actually on YouTube at the moment. There's a bit of a shot of, that's the opening sort of screenshot of me talking there. The second one is in final production, final edits, and that should be released soon. So keep an eye out for that one. Yeah, so with the Auckland and Island ambassadors programs are kind of coming to a wind down now, but you know, we've had some on-water activations through our mainland team trying to go out, or they did go out and interact with a bunch of vessels on anchor and just doing some outreach that way. And the island ambassadors continuing their work where they can. Yeah, so again, the Hutch Wilco Boat Show outreach, that was quite good. I think our clicker that we have when we have meaningful interactions was about 1,200 people that we interacted with at our stand. There was also the pop stand nearby, the Islands and Pathways team next door to us. There was, I think, Dock just across the road. It was a really big hub of all this environmental, marine and conservation stuff going on there. So it was really good having us all in one place. I think fisheries were there too. Yeah, so Craig was talking about the UVC trial. So the very initial trial that we did at Rakino, we helped fund that through the university and Craig. We are trying to get back there and maybe have a look at those initial trial sites to see what the regrowth has been like, if any. Things have been pretty hectic with all these new responses and weather, trying to get amongst those weather systems. So we are trying to get out there as well, and just general finalising our contracts and funding agreements with our partners for the end of financial year coming up. That's going to be quite a big task this month, I think. And then we're also planning for the next financial year. We've got a little bit more funding and some resources to continue this work in council. And yeah, it's interesting to see what MPI comes up with moving forward. And also one last thing is, you know, we've got these king tides happening at the moment, or that was yesterday, and the tides are still remaining large. We've got storm surges. So it might be a good time for, if you're, you know, doing a romantic beach walk somewhere, just check those shorelines for any beach cast Caulerpa that might have washed up, and that might indicate a nearby location of Caulerpa there. So yeah, that's a really good way of sort of helping inform where things are at. If there's anything else, any questions? Anyone?
Thank you, Dimitri. Any questions in the chat or hands up? And I'll keep an eye on the hands up sign this time.
Graham, could I ask a question?
Yeah, shoot, Barry.
Dimitri, we seem to be very much in reactive rather than proactive mode. I just wondered, with respect to Auckland Council, where you are at with respect to proactive surveillance. I think this has suffered considerably, although there was 10 million from MPI that, as we all know, mainly went to 3 big kit projects. And I feel we've kind of dropped the ball a little bit around surveillance. And of course, we'll never get ahead of this thing if there's no very active surveillance program.
Yeah, we've kind of been a little bit stretched there. The weather hasn't really been that great recently. And yes, we've had these incursions, which we've had to go and attend to those. So at our end, we've been quite quiet with the proactive side of things, but in terms of being proactive, we've had the advertising campaign and the outreach and all that sort of stuff that's been going on in that respect. So that's informing the public about it. And yeah, we've got some funding agreements going on. So Waiheke Marine Project, they've been doing some active surveillance around the Waiheke and that local region. And we're trying to get some other funding agreements up and running probably next year. And those partners will also help. They're looking to be interested in doing that proactive surveillance as well. So yeah, we'll try to aim to be a bit more proactive ourselves. But you're right. It has been quite reactive, fortunately.
Yes, it is. And I mean, just to follow on from that, there must be known anchor sites, and there must also be sites that have greater marine protection status than others. And again, we seem to be missing a plan around this. Again, maybe it's wishful thinking on my behalf that this will emerge from the National Advisory Group, but it seems we're missing this. Obviously, great quick response to Hauturu, but we all know in terms of the actual marine space around Hauturu, it's pretty bad. I wouldn't rank it as a high marine ecosystem compared to many of the sites out at Aotea, for example. So again, there just seems to be a big gap around this.
One thing I should mention also is that there's been a lot of passive surveillance. So, the Hauturu response, the detection there was through passive surveillance through just people going about their daily work, like the university doing their dive transects, biodiversity stuff, and they've come across Caulerpa and reported it. And I also forgot to mention that on Aotea, the Taitu Moana being quite proactive in that area as well and continuing the surveillance work. I guess with Hauturu, it's because we've got that pending high protection zone coming in that that's quite a valuable space. And the idea is to try and treat those locations and remove Caulerpa to keep it that way. Anyone else got anything to add to Barry's question there?
Dimitri, I can add in the chat a bit of a blurb to inform as well. Thanks.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sam.
Oh, I can't resist commenting.
It
is. Well, it's just frustration of mine as well. Maybe because I used to be a marine scientist, but I see and I understand why. But we seem to have missed the opportunity for continuous long-term, and I mean long-term, multi-year. So you get the seasonal cycle studies. It's 4 years now. As marine scientists, I'd have hoped we'd have a continuous time series of something at some place for 4 years, but we haven't.
Yeah.
And that, as speaking as a scientist, I used to be one. That does worry me that it's a missed opportunity, because so many conversations we have around exotic Caulerpa and what to do is we go, oh, we don't know this, we don't know that, and one could argue that we've missed an opportunity to fill some of those gaps, empirical gaps, with observations. But saying that, it's easy for me to say that, and I cast my mind back. A lot of the agencies work on very short financial timeframes, which is very difficult to fund multi-year studies. So, I have sympathy with both positions. Okay, thank you, Dimitri.
Thank you.
Busy Auckland Council. So that brings us to the end of the first set of presentations, which was the agency updates. We're going to now move along to the place updates. And first is Verdon with the Conquer Caulerpa, and I'm sure he's got some tales to tell of his last week. Are you still there, Verdon?
Oh yeah, I'm still here. And many of you may think you know me from previous times and wouldn't recognize me, and that's because I aged a lot this week. And I'll explain that. I'll just bring up my screen, take you through. Go. Come on, go into full mode. Brilliant. So I aim to be brief, around 15-20 minutes at the most. I just want to acknowledge my colleague, Barb, who's on the call with me as well today. You can't see her because her camera is parked under her desk, but nonetheless, she is here. Just quickly to recap on what we're about, Conquer Caulerpa Trust. Well, sorry, Verdon Kelleher, Chair, Conquer Caulerpa Trust. That's me. Live in Auckland, spend most of my time in the Bay of Islands, and somehow got involved in this. So what we're about is some key things with the main focus for us as a group is detection and monitoring. We're here to raise cash and also to build and collaborate with the community. We do removal work, a little bit of prevention, but by and large, there are 3 key focus areas that we're working on at the moment. We have been very happy to have a team now that is in the water, doing proactive surveillance, and so we got our first contract from MPI via the Northern Regional Council. Once we got ourselves, I know certified's the wrong word, but it'll do. Accepted as a partner for both organisations, and so we have a team of 11 divers, and when funding allows, we would have all 11 in the water, but we only had enough funding for a $118,000 contract, 17 days of work, which is continuing to happen. Yesterday was our last day in the water before the storm arrived, and so first and foremost, they're out there spotting, and their job was going to be doing a lot of elimination work. However, such has been the success of the trials that our remit will move more to spotting, finding, marking, and then the big boys will follow along behind us. However, when we come across patches, we'll get rid of it using the benthic mats with chlorine. And so we will be looking to fund ongoing work for the team, and that's an ongoing conversation with the regional and local, regional and central governments. And if we get insufficient funding for that to happen, then we'll go to our private sector and seek money. A big part of what we're about is comms, and that's educating the market, the region. Sorry, shows my previous life. The region on all things Caulerpa, and that's been pretty successful. So Caulerpa is very, very hot topic across Northland. It affects a lot of people. A lot of people are worried about it. And you can see top left there, that's a lot of traffic that has come in and looked at our Facebook page alone. The middle piece there, just one particular post at Easter, picking up bloody Caulerpa, that got quite a few views. Across to the right, you can see that a lot of people sharing what we post, and it gets shared a lot. In Northland, there are roughly 44 Facebook groups, each group representing a region, a town, a beach, a bay, and so everything gets shared. We do as much press as we possibly can. We have a very good reporter in Northland who is Miss Caulerpa, that's Susan Botting, and she's very passionate, and so we get a lot of press going out. And just some of you may have, when you're reading some of these headlines, gone, hold on, I'm not entirely sure that was the first or the biggest. Don't let the truth get in the way of a good story is all I'd like to say. Sometimes I was surprised, but nonetheless, it was just helping the messaging. Our newsletter, bottom left, that was very successful, that we pushed out as well, 60,000 views. And the thing that I was referring to just before around going grey was we decided we'd have a meeting for Northland, put on a hui, just invite Northland along to it. Should be easy. Just under 500 people accepted and signed up for it. 5 MPs, iwi leaders, dignitaries, all sorts. Of fantastic. The technology failed 3 times on the night, resulting in 3 times we had to send out a new link to that audience. That was fun, as I was sitting here going, and yeah, so nonetheless, it got underway. It was we ended up 160 odd people on the night from that, but we were able to send out the recording, and that was really well received. So education, where Caulerpa is, just to give you a quick overview. So this was in our newsletter, and I just changed what's in the official. I just copied, not changed. That would be. I'm glad Sophia didn't hear that. Just copied what's in the official platform, just to make it easier for our people to see. And since then, it has spread a little bit, shot up to underneath where that Bay of Islands is in the middle there, which is the Waiwai Te Rere channel. And but at the same time, while it's spreading, we have people in the water getting rid of it as well. So it's a moving feast. But to give you an idea in real numbers, this was the point in time where we had Caulerpa when I did put out the last newsletter. And I've been a good South Island boy. I measure everything in rugby fields because I really don't understand anything else. And so this is how we've been sharing people where it's at. None of this worry anymore. I was 10 days ago, I was worried about the impact of Caulerpa, but once I started hearing around the work that's going on the results of the trials with the UV and the chlorine chamber, my only concern now is money and making sure those guys are funded to be able to do their work. I have no doubt whatsoever that we will be able to wipe out 2,787,000 square meters of Caulerpa in no time at all. I'm very confident on that. So in summary, what we're about, what we're doing. Easter was a huge thing. It was really helpful for us. I was there, unfortunately, because I'd got the family together for Easter for a nice, long weekend fishing and drinking Lion Red. And there's me spending all my weekend on the beach. But I met a lot of people, and it was actually, while my back was sore for days, it was really enjoyable. And that young man on the top right there, whose name I don't remember, but a good guy, that seeing Caulerpa like that, it was literally, it's big, long, shaggy pieces of carpet, thick as that, and it was incredible. And people came from all over the Bay of Islands to help. And this is just one particular beach. There would have been 4 beaches active over that Easter with people picking up Caulerpa. Long Bay near Russell was the one closest to the biggest population area. So it was quite a thing. But in summary, so as a region, we're reasonably pleased with where we're at. We have a lot of people working on the Caulerpa problem in Northland across different groups. Our group is not the be all and end all. We just sit in, we fit in as a part. We don't say we represent the entire Northland region. We are just a group of volunteers that are helping out, but there are some other organisations who are doing equally fantastic work that we work really closely with, particularly in the iwi sector. But we managed to work together really well. As I said, we're delighted with the tech trials. It's just been fantastic news, and it has been fabulous having the crew of divers on board within our organisation that can be proactively working in with NIWA, DOC and BNZ, as well as Northern Regional Council. So huge different groups of divers are in doing, looking for Caulerpa, all of them working in a coordinated method, all of them posting their results to the same place. So there's no double ups, crossover, all of that really cohesive and coordinated, and so quite enjoyable. And a lot of that's down to we're very lucky, I think, as a country to have the caliber of the people behind the scenes, should I say it, who have been working on this for years now, in the Auckland University, in NIWA, DOC and MPI, the NRC. They're fantastic. They just, not many people knew about the great work that they were doing. And so all I do is tell people the great work they're doing and then say, I need you to give me some money now to pay for it. And so that's the final point. So conversations, the questions you are all asking, I mean, you're asking Sophia before. I certainly did that myself this week, as well as her boss. And the next step for us is to watch and wait, really. So I believe that MPI will come up with some money. They can't say they can, and they're following the party line at the moment, but you can't come out before trials are finished and say, yeah, we're going to go and do all this funding. They do have to wait. I understand that process. And so, but I have got contingencies in place that if they don't come out with enough. And so that's in the private sector where we've been out talking to people and getting donations ready to if we need them. We've made no secret of this from MPI, and we share everything about what we're doing to make sure that we are really closely communicating. So, but it doesn't mean that they would not go away and ask for money. It means that that they know what we're doing, and it's very important that if I go and have a chat to a large group of potential donors, and they will go and cross-reference what I'm saying with MPI, and so it's important that we're all singing from the same hymn book. Nonetheless, yeah, while it's been a hectic and crazy few months, and what I haven't mentioned here is all the public stuff that goes on. These are the meetings we attend, the HUIs, all sorts of stuff around the region that the team go off and we share and we go off and do. It does sort of feel like we're getting it together and we can see an end of this thing coming up. I do believe that there will be a day when none of these meetings are required, yours and mine up north, and we'll be looking at the next thing. Any questions?
Well, wait for the questions. Thanks, Burton. You're doing a great job of telling people and raising the visibility of the exotic Caulerpa threat up north, and you're looking good for all the stress of this week. So I think you need a bit more stress.
I know, it was pretty stressful, mate, the other night. I'm sitting here. I'm in a garage. I know you can't tell, but and like, I literally had over 300 emails or texts or messages all coming at me within a 10-minute period going, link's not working. It was so much fun. It was just, I just loved it.
All right. Sorry, there is some questions around Section 52. Are you familiar with the Section 52, Verden?
Yeah, we are. We have done our Section 52. And so we've been through that process. I don't know what you call it when you pass, but we've done that.
Okay. All right. And I'm just.
Oh, Michelle's going to correct me. Barb?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to correct you at all. You're absolutely correct. But there was a question in the chat that asked about a section 52 for the beach cleanup. Verdon.
Oh, well, we didn't organise the beach cleanup. And one thing I do know is if you're the chair of the Caulerpa Trust and you're sitting up there right next to that beach and you don't go down to the beach and all the locals are picking up Caulerpa, that's not a smart thing. So I just went and picked up Caulerpa, and I left the politics of was it a good idea, not good idea. I said, I'm just going to pick up Caulerpa. That's what I did.
So my reading of section 52 of the Biosecurity Act is it uses the word communicate. So exotic Caulerpa is an unwanted organism. If one communicates an unwanted organism, communicate means move it, you do actually need a section 52. So technically, anybody picking exotic Caulerpa up and moving it anywhere technically requires approval under the section 52.
Yeah, and
Right,
I was aware of that on that day, but it was
Yeah.
an interesting environment, and there was a lot of people on the phone to MPI at the time when it was happening, and really, it just felt like the right thing to do, whether it was the wrong thing or not. And I don't know whether it was, because I'm no marine biologist, even though I pretend I am to my mates. I had no clue. And so, but when you saw it like it was, and I know you guys had a similar thing, because I saw the photos of it over in Aotea, when it does wash up, and it's quite a sight. It really was very, I don't know, moving to see that many people down there and passionate and picking it up. And trouble is, it's now 6 feet high up against Pohutukawa trees along the cliff. Not entirely sure that's good, because it's not exactly great stuff. I don't know what it's doing in the Pohutukawa trees, so it's sort of the next problem to solve.
I think the one good thing, if I can just quickly, is Barb here from Caulerpa Trust. Yep. If I can say one very, very positive thing about all that Caulerpa washing up on the beaches, it has made so many people more aware. Mm-hmm. You can tell people, you can show them pictures. When they see it with their own eyes, it's a different experience.
Very true. Okay, mindful of the time. Thanks, Verdon. We'll move on. I just want to mention that it is 12:07, and technically we run to 12:15. But given the pretty lackluster time management by myself, we'll just keep going if that's okay, because we've got a couple more really interesting and useful presentations. Feel free to drop off, of course, if you need lunch or other meetings, and you can catch up on recordings. But I think given the discourse and the information flow, I think it was good just to keep going and give everybody enough time and overrun the timing. And on the question, there is a presentation from Hannah coming up from Aotea in a few minutes, but next off is Grant Crawford from the Waiheke Marine Project. If you're there, Grant, and if you want to drive your slides.
Yeah, kia ora. Thank you, Graham. You'll need to let me share, or you'll.
I've just done that now, Grant. Aroha. Yep, you're right to go.
Thank you. We'll give it a go. Okay, hopefully that's visible now.
Yes, we can see you and the presentation.
Well, Grant Crawford, everyone from Waiheke Marine Project. Thanks for this opportunity. Like many of you, Marine Project was busy doing other things 669 days ago when we discovered, when we found Caulerpa for the first time. Here are a couple of images. So on the left we have a photo from the first discovery at Thompson's Point. We're also seeing other examples. We've got fanworm in the area, so we're monitoring that and recording that as part of our reporting to Auckland Council. And on the right is sort of a recent typical, I guess, image of in Paimelon Bay on Waiheke's northern coast, where we start to see the spreading examples. just little paddles poking up amongst the broken shell. So we're very grateful to Auckland Council for supporting our ROV work. We're working with Logan Marine Project. I think Joe might be on this call as well. So thank you, Joe, and Jamie for that work. But we're using ROV. We have 3 PAR sensors, light sensors we're about to install in the area between Narni Island and Thompson's Point to help do our part to contribute to the understanding of the effect of light. And we're also on the right, the images from one of our other projects called a dive survey. With divers in the water, we're able to also keep an eye out for examples of Caulerpa. A quick look at where we've been able to do this ROV work. The blue icons are negative. So we've gone from Matiatia in the west right to Horu Gannet Rock in the east, and a couple round into Hawke's Bay, which aren't on this. The orange is the positive, and the yellow is the requiring review. We have done one additional survey, which is yet to be uploaded into here and to the community viewer, and that was on the 6th of May. So we're just waiting for that data to be uploaded. But the concentration of all the efforts are in that Narni Island to Thompson's Point area out here. We've recently, in the 6th of May survey, there was a video here. Where is that? Does not seem to be here. Here we go. This is a 2-minute video of one of the ROV transects in the Woodlands Bay area, which is in the greater Onotangi Bay. We're a bit worried about this. It could be, we've got a weed here that looks like it might be Caulerpa that's not happy. When the light hits the blades just a bit further on in the video, we can start to see some of the green, but it could be another. Here we go. Some greeny uprights here. This could be. We've sort of discussed whether this could be biomass reduction. Have we got sediment coming across the Caulerpa? It's really requiring more investigation and more discussion with everyone. But this is quite a large area, and this is just a 2-minute typical transect that we're doing with the ROV. 8 meters odd depth. Stirring up the sand a little bit as we try and zoom in. Could be another plant altogether, but some of these images look like Caulerpa that's been there for a while and not that happy. Also acknowledging that we don't have rafts like we've seen images of in Bay of Islands and at Aotea. Our Parvolia seems to be different and more, and as Craig was mentioning, it varies in its coverage, but doesn't seem to be going away. nearly there. Now I'll try and get out of there. There we go. With the additional eyes in the water, this is a rough map of last year's Calder crayfish survey. So we've just restarted this this work last weekend, and this is last year's sort of 5 dive areas. So we are also able to keep an eye out in the habitat, crayfish habitat areas for Caulerpa. Last Saturday we started with an opening in Matiatia. There are 4 consecutive weekends planned. We had 5 boats plus a community boat on day 1, 18 divers in the water plus 2 free divers that were able to do 2 dive sessions. We cancelled last Sunday because of the weather, and this weekend's hoping to get out there at least one of the days in the weekend. We've also been part of a communication program. We've been focusing, whilst other communication content is bag it and bin it, we've been trying to help our local community with of what it looks like. And these are some of the examples of social tiles and print tiles that we've been releasing into the Waiheke community as part of our the support we're getting from Auckland Council and Biosecurity New Zealand. So our activities are we're supporting other groups here at Waiheke. So that includes Ngāti Paoa Iwi Trust with their Moana ambassador work over summer with crewing boats, and we've also been supporting Craig's work where we can with his UV light, and that's UV light trial. So where we can be effective, we're supporting all that type of work across the area. Continuing with communication campaigns, we have one more ROV day in the current funding, so we'll be working out when we can do that with Logan Marine when the weather permits. Continuing this diver work and installing the 3 power sensors, and always we're crewed by community people and Ngāti Paoa ki Waiheke Roku. And thank you. That's all from me. I'm happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Grant. Thanks for the update, all the great work you're doing over there. Anybody, any questions? I've got a couple, but I think I've asked too many today, so I'll take them offline. If there's no more questions, okay. Cool. Okay. Thanks, Grant. We're only 4 minutes over, and we'll pass over. I think Hannah's here with us, and I've been misinforming people the organisation that Hannah is representing today. So I'll let Hannah tell us the new name, if she's there. I hope she is now. Maybe she's not. I thought you was, Hannah.
I'm here.
Unless
I'm here.
you're on...
Sorry,
ah,
a while to
okay.
turn that on. Hello,
Okay.
everybody. So I think I did cover it in our last presentation a couple of months ago, but we are Taitu Moana. Would you be able to bring up, if you're ready, would you be able to bring up my presentation?
Yeah, with me. Where is it? Sorry, I should have been ready, shouldn't I? Here we go. But Just share. Can you see that?
Yep, got it.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, as I said, we are Taitu Moana, so I'll give you a quick Aotea update. I'll try and be as fast as possible for you. So, on the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yep. We've completed our summer Kaimanaki program, which was our ambassadors monitoring the CAM. We had 2 vessels on the water and 4 wharf-based ambassadors interacting with the public between December 2024 and April this year. Compared to the previous year, we did experience higher levels of anchoring non-compliance. We did have a lot of wet and windy weather days this year, so just in terms of the hours we were able to spend on the water, and the number of boats we interacted with, it worked out at about a 52% increase of non-compliance. We also noted a considerable number of people that the Kaimanaki ambassadors interacted with at the wharf, still noting that they were unaware of the CAN area. So if you skip to the next slide, please, and the next one. So we have, in the last 6 months, we've completed quite a bit of ROV surveillance. At the end of last year, we had a look at Port Fitzroy and Port Abercrombie just before we came into the summer season and the influx of boats to the island. We saw a bit of an extension to the known infestation around Man of War Passage into Port Fitzroy, and we also identified a new infestation at Caulerpa Bay. We have also now moved to the East Coast, so I'm afraid the green dots on here are quite small. You can just see the positive red dots on here mostly, but we've gone from the northeastern tip right down to Awana, which is around the midpoint of the island, the circumference of Rakatu. At the moment, we are free from exotic caulerpa on the East Coast. We have started a surveillance project in Tryphena to delimit the known infestation in Tryphena. There's been a small amount of beach cast caulerpa after bad weather, but definitely not at the levels Northland has seen. So we've started with an ROV surveillance here, and then we'll move on to some intensive diver surveillance. So as you can see, there's a lot of red points in Tryphena, but I'll cover that a little bit later. And next slide, please. So Catherine Bay, we were aware of a deep infestation at around 35 metres from some Auckland Council Logan Marine surveillance in June 2024. Our surveillance in December 2024 showed other sparse patches at around the 35 metre mark, but didn't identify anything further into the bay in the shallower areas. MPI were alerted by a member of public in February 2025 that a member of public had collected some dense caulerpa on his anchor. And Catherine Bay is free from anchoring restrictions. So we set up a team to investigate this further and see if we could find caulerpa in any of the shallower areas. So if you could, the bottom picture there is just the initial find. So quite sparse, very deep. So next slide, please. So you can see from our map here, we undertook a considerable amount of surveillance at Catherine Bay. The red marks on the left-hand side are all at around 35 metres deep. The shallowest one we found was 17.5 metres, but that seemed to be a floating ball that had come from elsewhere. You can see the typical finds here are clinging to existing structures and also quite deep. So obviously noting the preference for it sticking to structures. One of the options that we're considering for the finds is that it was a mixture of exotic caulerpa and something else that was brought up on the anchor. We haven't found any massive carpets throughout the bay, or it could have been one of these floating balls that's come from elsewhere. But we do have a little more funding to look at the west coast, and we'll be looking at the areas north of Catherine Bay to see if there are any dense patches up there. So the next slide, please. So during our December surveillance, we found this infestation in Caulerpa Bay, which is in the safe anchoring area of our CAN. A new detection team was stood up to respond to the new infestation, being that it was in a safe anchoring area. We completed some ROV surveillance. Auckland Council followed up with some diver surveillance, which was part of a fanworm project, but they helped us find a bit of a better picture because it is around a mussel farm, which makes ROV surveillance quite tricky. The infestation was quite dense, but it seemed to be focused on boulders and reef. There was a small sparse area on the sand. And our plan to respond to this was to wrap some of the densely populated boulders with plastic benthic mats and chlorine, and then follow this up with ongoing surveillance to see its effectiveness and if there had been any further spread, especially from the areas on the sand. So if you skip to the next slide. So we were able to get in the water last week. So this is the map of the areas that were surveyed. MEFs were part of the original surveillance for Auckland Council, so they knew exactly where to look, and they've covered the same areas. As you can see in the photos here, the reef, the Caulerpa has receded to the point where it was hard to identify. There are a couple of fronds still there, and this is new news to us, so we're still discussing our next steps, but as you can see, there's been a considerable amount of recession. So if you could skip to the next slide. And what are we working on next? So next one. So Tryphena, as I mentioned before, surveillance in Tryphena, because it's in the non-anchoring area of the can, there hasn't been any real detailed intensive surveillance of Tryphena. We've done some ROV surveillance, as you can see here, lots of positive points. But what's actually interesting is when you look at the positive points, so in the top left bay is Pururi Bay, which is also where the hand suction dredging and benthic mat with chlorine treatment was undertaken in 2023. So we did a couple of drops down there. If you skip to the next one. So the bottom left picture here is a seagrass meadow. You can see in the background, there is a hard shape, which I think is a lost anchor, and that is completely covered in Caulerpa. So that's what we're finding in that sort of area. Also in Pururi Bay, we've got some reef areas where you have got the kelp, and you've got some patchy exotic Caulerpa on the reef. And then there are some denser areas here. And I think actually in the top left picture, there does seem to be something underneath it. So whether it's a lost cray pot or something that's been lost to the bottom of the sea, but it does seem to be clinging to structures. And obviously on the other side of the harbour in Shell Bay, this is quite a sparse picture, and you can't quite see from this, but it does appear to have receded a little bit. And not to underplay it, there is a lot in Tryphena, but we still need to have a detailed look with our biosphere surveillance. And if you could just skip to the next slide. So what else we are doing until the end of June? We're looking at some West Coast surveillance. So Okupe is where the initial exotic Caulerpa find was. Our divers that came to look at Caulerpa Bay last week, they had a spare day, seeing as they weren't doing any treatment. So they went down and had a look around this area here. So we're also seeing some quite thick mats. We're also seeing some areas where it appears kinna are grazing on it. That middle picture at the bottom, it's some very trimmed down blades of exotic Caulerpa, and then also a preference for clinging to structures too. So some interesting finds there, and we are hoping to build on that with a bit more ROV and dive surveillance. That's our plan for the next month. So that's me for now, if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Hannah. Any questions? I don't think there's anything in the chat. Good to see so much going on out here. Keeping you busy. No questions?
Well, Graham, just a very quick comment. We did at relatively short notice get asked if we would consider the chlorine curtain trial out at Aotea. But you will have seen already from Hannah's excellent slides how complex it is, for example, with the seagrass and the like. And we went back to MPI with a lot of questions and to Brooke. We got answers to some, but we really did not get a full and complete plan. And then a decision was made, I suppose, with the tightness of contracts, to carry that trial out somewhere else. So I just want to clarify for the community that it's not that we didn't want the chlorine curtain trial out at Aotea. We're dealing with a very complex marine environment, and I think it was very fair for Taitu Moana Group to ask lots of questions about where it might be and the extent of it. So that's just information from me on behalf of the group for those online today.
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks for that clarification.
Hello.
Hi. Who's that?
I think Peter Hoey.
Is that Peter?
Kia ora, Barry. Kia ora, Hannah. Kia ora, Tiffany. If I can refer to my earlier message to Barry and Tiffany, just one question. Has the group received and been successful in any funding to the tune of $500,000? That's the first question. Has the group been successful in the application?
Yes, it has come through in different chunks. So the Summer Kaimanaki scheme was the first chunk, the comms program about the CAN. We've had some surveillance funding. We have had some funding to get to Mana Whenua divers commercially trained as well. So we have had bits. I haven't added it up. I think we're close, but I haven't added it up.
Okay, so the group has received $500,000 in funding?
Close.
Close. Okay.
Perhaps Peter, I'll step in. It got very complicated because it got broken up into many different components. Some of it got channeled via Auckland Council, for example, the Summer Ambassador Program. Initially, the thought was that was independent, but that then got allocated against our so-called budget. So a considerable chunk of the money has not come directly to the island, but through Auckland Council.
Just mindful of the time, and this is quite a detailed kind of project specific, and I think Anna has just shown there's a lot of work going on at Aotea. We're not sure what the quantum of money is. If it's okay with you, Peter, we'll just move on from this subject. I just think we're 20 minutes over, and it is quite Aotea specific, but there's a significant amount of investment through various ways gone into Aotea. So if it's okay with you, Peter, I'll move on.
Yeah, and Peter, you can get in touch with us directly too.
Yeah.
So let's close quickly before we go, before we move on, Graham. Hannah, can you please provide your email address on message so I can email you?
Yeah.
With some questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Peter. Sorry for. Okay. Right. So I was hoping that Wyn Osborne from Ngāti Hay was going to provide a quick update. I don't see him on the chat, so I'm going to pause briefly to see whether there is Wyn is here or anybody else from Ngāti Hay that would like to give an update. If not, we're going to move on. So, okay, we'll move on to Alistair Gribben, who I've asked to, he's from Hydro Synergy. Are you there, Alistair?
Hi, Graham. I'm here.
Hi. Platform's all yours.
Oh, thank you. My name is Alistair Gribben. I work for Hydro Synergy, and Graham and the group, thank you so much for this opportunity. I know time is tight, so I'll keep it very brief. We've spoken to some of you at various stages. In short, we have a biotech product that utilizes ultrasound at very low power, but high-tech frequencies. So the power that is emitted is no greater than a fish sonar. We, just a little bit of a history, we went for some of the funding in November. We weren't successful. However, we continued on, and the manufacturer has very philanthropically continued some research and developing a product. And so we did that, and in January released the new ultrasound product that we call Generation 3. And just the frequencies we emit is between ultrasound is 20 to 250 kilohertz. So sorry, I'm moving quite fast, but it cycles through those frequencies, and this will become relevant just in a couple of minutes when I talk about stuff. We connected with Andrew Jeffs up at the Auckland University. He had some interest in potentially the effectiveness of ultrasound. And we, it was under our own steam. And so we committed to sort of a very low level sort of, well, not low level, that's the wrong word, but an experiment with a control chamber and with our units in there. And I think it was March, and unfortunately Andrew came back and he said, oh look, I'm not seeing anything. And just to keep Katina and Graham in touch, I said, oh, you know, there's not much. Then a few days later, had a call from Andrew Jeffs, and he says, hold on a minute, I'm seeing something. And obviously we got very, very excited. And so we kept in touch with MPI as well, informing them of what was going on. And we got a small amount of funding to do the research that was being done at Auckland University was very much observational. And we got a little bit of funding from MPI, and they said would like to see a more detailed report, which has the study's been completed, and Andrew is now doing a detailed report with slow motion cameras and high resolution photos and everything, and that's due out on the 5th, and I will share that with everyone when that report comes out, 5th of June. And so we're hoping for something. Andrew seems quite buoyed in that. And Graham, because I didn't trust myself, has a slide. We are in trials. We had a very successful trial with our equipment down in Mount Cook alpine salmon. What you're looking at here is filamentous green algae. The top 3 slides is the control net at the other side of the farm. And then the 3 photos below are with our ultrasound unit. So you can see the difference between the ultrasound units within the salmon pen and not in the salmon pen. They were so excited because, as you can see in the control on day 21, they had to pull it out to clean the nets as they normally do. And they could keep the nets with salmon inside them on day 21, and you can see that there is no noticeable growth. In fact, there's some retardation of filamentous green algae or whatever the other algae is on there. We haven't done a test of that on day 21. So so I showed this to Andrew, and he said, well, we knew we were effective with cyanobacteria algae, which is much simpler, but to see the effect on filamentous green algae was a big step towards Caulerpa. There is another big step from filamentous green algae to Caulerpa, as I'm not a scientist, but many more people in the forum will know that. So I'm just looking at, you know, that's where we're at. But a bit like Verdon, who I met earlier this year, is that I've been going around seeking some philanthropic funds to aid with Andrew Jeff's research up at Auckland University, and we think we found somebody, and he's going to sponsor a PhD student to continue our studies. Where we believe that we are going to make a difference is when we can identify the frequency, the natural frequency of the Caulerpa, and when we can establish that, which isn't easy, we can narrow down. Before I was explaining that we cycle through 20 kilohertz to 250 kilohertz. If we discover, for example, that the natural frequency of Caulerpa is sitting at 65 kilohertz, we can just target 65 kilohertz with the transducer. And instead of cycling through the whole frequency range, we just keep it at that. And we might have some efficacy there. So that's me in a very quick, brief outline of what we're up to. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Thanks, Alistair. Appreciating that you're early in the development life cycle, but I thought it really key just to share that there are multiple other treatment tools in the pipeline. We've talked quite extensively about the 3 treatment tools that are being progressed at the moment, but there are other ones such as sound, and that was a good example. So I think there is a question from Barry. Can you read that yourself, Alistair, in the chat, or do you want me to?
As I understand, sonication causes lots of fragmentation. Are you looking into this with Caulerpa or other algae? We haven't seen fragmentation. We disrupt the cells, and apologize, anyone can correct me, but we affect the cells with their natural frequency, so the cells die. So I haven't heard this before, but I can definitely get comment from Andrew Jeffs if this is the case. But to my knowledge, I don't think so.
No other questions. I'm trying to parallel process, which I'm not the best at. Right. So thanks, Alistair. If there's no more questions, we'll move on, which was just 2 very quick mentions I wanted to make. One is Sophia did mention there will be a tech talk on the 12th of June, and that's Lee Tate from NIWA will be covering off the AI powered real-time detection of exotic Caulerpa. So that's one of the projects that MPI funded. I'll be sending out an invite to that tomorrow, but that's just a quick heads up. And then we have received another report about a surveillance system, which we will make that report available. I'll put all the documents on our Google Drive and send out all the links tomorrow with the recording. So that's just the 2 announcements I wanted to make. And I wanted to say thank you to all the presenters, and thank you everybody for staying the distance. It's been a long meeting, but jam-packed full of useful information. So thank you for the time commitment, and you can almost go for your lunch. I will just invite Katina to close us off another really jam-packed information session. So over to Katina.
Kia ora, Graham, and ngā mihi nui kia koutou for your time and your generosity of sharing. Thank you so much for making this work. I shall close us with a karakia he noi tātou. Manawa mai te mauri nuku, manawa mai te mauri rangi, ko te mauri KO, he mauri tipua. Ka pakaru mai te pō, tau mai te mauri. Haumi e, hui e, tai ki e. Kia ora koutou, go well in your rest of your day.